Hey folks, Erick Stakelbeck here. Welcome to the Watchman Newscast live stream, December 26th, the day after Christmas. I hope everyone had a very Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah to all my Jewish friends in Israel and around the world. This is day 2 of Hanukkah. Pretty cool that Hanukkah and Christmas converged this year. The first night of Hanukkah was last night, December 25th. And now we've got, 8 days for our Jewish friends. And you could say today that Israel, and some people are saying this, that Israel, in a way, lit the second Hanukkah candle in Yemen a few hours ago. I'm coming to you around 2 o'clock Texas time on December 26th. But Israel today carried out massive airstrikes against those Iran-backed Houthi rebels who have really been a thorn, an increasing thorn in Israel's side over the past several weeks. A steady barrage, I mean daily this is becoming, folks, of ballistic missiles launched from Yemen by those Houthi rebels. Not only that, a consistent barrage of drones as well, all emanating from Yemen. You might say, wow, okay, why Yemen? Well, Yemen now has become very crucial to Iran's overall strategy, which, as we've detailed for you over the past few weeks, has unraveled. I mean, the Iranian axis, the Iranian ring of fire that surrounds Israel on all sides has been pulverized by the Israel Defense Forces, whether it's Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad in Gaza, whether it's Hezbollah in Lebanon, whether it's the collapse of the Assad regime in Syria. All of this carefully constructed ring of fire is now being demolished before your very eyes and before the Ayatollahs in Iran's eyes. But the one ring, and by the way, another ring, Iraq, as we reported here in the live stream 2 days ago, the Iran-backed Iraqi militias are saying, you know what? We're going to take a little break on attacking Israel. They see which way the winds are blowing, and they don't want to be smashed next. I say all that to say we now have 4 rings on that Iranian ring of fire, really the 4 main rings, now out of commission for the most part, which makes Yemen and the Houthis even more important to the Ayatollahs. Look, they're kind of the last man standing in some respects. The Houthis continue, as I just mentioned, on a daily basis to launch projectiles at Israel. Now, over the weekend, a ballistic missile hit Tel Aviv. In Jaffa, the southern part of Tel Aviv, wounded 16 people. Over the summer, an Israeli was killed by a Houthi drone that struck in Tel Aviv. So this has become a persistent problem. And for a while, Israel said, you know what, we can kind of contain the Houthis. And Israel carried out major airstrikes in late September and in July against the Hodeidah port, the main port in Yemen. And that was major. It sent a message, or so you would have thought, mushroom cloud above Yemen. And this was seen, apparently, these raging fires and explosions were seen for miles and miles. Message sent. But the Houthis obviously did not get the memo and were not deterred because they have continued, even intensified their attacks against Israel. Israel carried out airstrikes late last week, some pretty serious ones against 3 ports, and the Houthis responded with more missiles and more drones. You know the refrain here on the live stream: evil is arrogant, it's relentless because it's demonic, and evil is also quite stupid. And again, the Houthis check all 3 of those boxes, which leads to today. And Israel's response, and this came after days of Israeli leaders, Benjamin Netanyahu and the defense minister Israel Katz, saying, look, okay, now we've reached the point of no return. Hamas and Hezbollah, we've done a very good job in neutralizing them. Assad has collapsed. The Iraqi militias are backing down. Iran itself, the head of the snake, their air defenses have been destroyed by Israel over the past few months. So Israel's saying now we can actually focus on, you guessed it, the Houthis in Yemen. Whereas we couldn't before, we just didn't have the bandwidth if you're the Israel Defense Forces. And again, Yemen is 1,000 miles away, folks, south of Israel. It's not a short distance. It's not like going over the border in Lebanon or Gaza. So a lot of factors there where Israel said, you know what, we'll kind of kick the Houthi can down the road and deal with it at another time unless it really intensifies. Well, guess what? It's really intensified. On a nightly basis, Israelis are running to bomb shelters as sirens are going off as the Houthis launch ballistic missiles at Tel Aviv. So it's simply unsustainable. And now Israel, bad news for the Houthis, Israel not only has the motivation, obviously, to protect its citizenry, but now Israel has the bandwidth. Look, it's not ideal still with a very shaky ceasefire in Lebanon, with operations still ongoing, in particular in northern Gaza. But now it must be dealt with. And today, Israel took a large step towards dealing with it. And next, by the way, I'm going to break down exactly what they did. But next, look for the targeting of Houthi leaders. And both Netanyahu and the defense minister, Israel Katz, have said this over the past few days that, hey, as Israel, we're at the point where the Houthi leaders are fair game, kind of the hybrid model that you've seen Israel use against Hamas and Hezbollah, striking their military and terror infrastructures, but even more importantly, eliminating their leadership. Now, Israel's checked one of those boxes with the Houthis. It has really made a dent in the Houthis' military infrastructure. More on that in a second. But now the Houthi leaders. And that may be the only way to really put a stop to this, because people are saying now that this may be an ongoing thing because of the distance. Israeli fighter jets, again, have to travel 1,000 miles to strike these targets, and over 1,000 miles in some cases to strike these targets in Yemen. It's not easy. Israel clearly is equipped to do it, and the Houthis are clearly no match for Israel. But what would really be nice would be, I don't know, the US and the UK, who reportedly provided Israel with intelligence today, which is a good thing. But what would have been nice would be for them, Israel and the UK, because the Houthis have been a global problem, right? They've been shutting down shipping lanes in the Red Sea, which has profoundly impacted the US, the UK, and really every nation. A lot of the world's commerce goes through the Red Sea on a daily basis. Many now have changed their routes and said, I'm not using the Red Sea. That has impacts on the entire world, not just Israel, not just the Middle East. The US and the UK supposedly have a coalition against the Houthis, but guess what? We've seen nothing from them like we've seen from Israel, major airstrikes. We've seen airstrikes, but nothing with serious bite that could potentially deter the Houthis. And they're not even talking about it. It's been a purely defensive action by the US and the UK. So it's up to Israel once again to do the world's dirty work and take care of another thorn in the world's side, the Houthis, just as they have Iran, Hamas, and Hezbollah, and leading to the collapse of the Assad regime, Israel's actions. But okay, here's what we have. The Times of Israel. Israeli, just reading this straight off my phone. Israeli jets hit Sanaa Airport and Houthi sites along the Yemen coast after repeated missile attacks. The IDF has confirmed strikes on Yemen's capital, Sanaa, and port infrastructure in response to recent assaults on Israel. And Bibi is vowing to keep up the attacks. We are determined, Netanyahu said, to cut off this terror arm of the Iranian axis of evil. We will persist in this until we complete the job. So now Israel's all in. The Houthis have stirred a hornet's nest, and now they're going to get what they've been asking for. Now Israel's saying enough is enough. We can't countenance this. The Israel Defense Forces said that during the sortie, fighter jets and dozens, according to some reports, 25, a few dozen. By the way, that's my pup. I'm at home today, obviously, for the Christmas holiday still. And if you hear a little bit of background noise, that's my 1-year-old pup, a sheepadoodle, who we actually got a year ago on Christmas Eve. He's a good boy, but he's rambunctious, and he likes to be around Dad when I'm working here. But if you hear a little bit of background noise, apologies. That's Rocky, our sheepadoodle. But the Israel Defense Forces said during the sortie, fighter jets struck Houthi targets along Yemen's western coast and deeper within the country. The targets included infrastructure used by the Houthi terror regime for its military activities at Sanaa International Airport. Now, apparently, runways were destroyed at that airport in the Yemeni capital. And who knows if Iranian weapons shipments were coming in, most likely through that airport. Israel also bombed the Hejaz power plant just outside Sanaa, and Israeli fighter jets also hit infrastructure at the Hodeidah, Salif, and Ras Kantib ports on the Yemeni Red Sea coast, including another power plant. And the IDF said these infrastructures were used by the Houthi terror regime to, you guessed, transfer Iranian weapons to the region and for the entry of senior Iranian officials. Now, it's interesting. because the number one, these strikes came just as the leader of the Houthis, Abdul Malik al-Houthi, was giving a televised speech. Literally, as he was speaking to the nation, Israeli fighter jets went into action. There was no immediate comment from the Houthi leadership about the Israeli strikes, but clearly the timing interesting when the leader of this terror movement is actually giving a speech and Israel's bombarding them. So message sent there, you would think. I don't expect the Houthis to remain silent here. I think the Houthis will have to be utterly destroyed for this to stop, or pretty darn near destroyed. And that means eliminating the leadership. And I've been saying this for months to the US and the UK before Israel had to step up its game. And I had no other choice. It's being attacked on a daily basis by the Houthis. I've been saying for months, hey, US and UK, if you really want to put a stop to this nonsense, target their leadership. And that was not forthcoming. But I think everyone has the date circled on the calendar, January 20th, 25 days from now, 26 days from now, when Donald Trump takes office once again. We're going to talk more about the ramifications of that for the Houthis in Yemen and Iran in a second. Also, as I mentioned, 1,000 miles away, Yemen from Israel, over 1,000 miles. Is this a dry run of sorts for a long-range Israeli operation? It would be long-range to strike Iran's nuclear sites. I think there's something larger at work here. And we're going to break that down more in a minute. And by the way, interesting, people say, well, look, the Houthis don't answer to Iran as much as Hezbollah and Hamas did. Perhaps not. The Houthis are a wild bunch for sure, not that the others aren't. But clearly, Iran is arming, training, Iranian officials are on the ground helping to direct things in Yemen, no doubt. Okay, perhaps the Houthis have more independence than Hezbollah and Hamas did, but at the end of the day, Iran's claw prints are all over this. They are an Iranian proxy at the end of the day, and that's why some are saying, including the head of the Mossad reportedly, saying, hey, okay, we can strike the Houthis in Yemen, we can carry out airstrikes there and send them even further into the Stone Age. But what about the head of the snake, Iran? If Iran's pulling the strings here, shouldn't we send a message to Iran directly? More on that in a minute. Just a quick reminder before we continue here. And again, if you're just joining us, Merry Christmas. Hope everyone had a great Christmas with their families. Happy Hanukkah to all my Jewish friends around the world and in Israel. By the way, reminder, Jesus celebrated Hanukkah because Jesus was Jewish. Newsflash. I know that may shock some as we have anti-Semitism rising, including among some so-called Christians. But Jesus observed the Feast of Dedication according to the Gospel of John. He went up to Jerusalem and observed Hanukkah, which represents that great victory, the miraculous victory over the Maccabees, and the eternal flame continuing to burn in the temple miraculously. So happy Hanukkah, everyone. And there is tonight on TBN, where Stakelbeck tonight airs, my nightly show on TBN every Monday through Friday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, with a re-air at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, we've got a Hanukkah special. And why Hanukkah has relevance for followers of Jesus and Christians as well. I think it's really fascinating stuff, and that will be tonight. We'll have some on-the-ground reporting from Magen, the hometown of the Maccabees. You won't want to miss that. That's all tonight on TBN. But a reminder to subscribe here. Click the notification bell so you get alerts every time a new video is posted to our channel. We passed the 1 million subscriber mark. Hard to believe. In 2024, it was quite a year, and we owe all thanks to God Almighty and thanks to you, our loyal viewers, our watchmen and women on the wall. We'd love you to join the family, so make sure to subscribe. And we also want to give a shout out today. Hey, now more than ever, we say for such a time as this, often on this channel, and that goes without saying right now with everything Israel is facing. For our partner for today's live stream, our dear friends at Magen, Adom. Now, you've heard me talk many times here about Magen, Adom, and how they're quite literally doing God's work. This is Israel's emergency services system. They are Israel's first responders. It's a largely volunteer force that responds to every terror attack, any calamity in the region. You have Magen David Adom on the ground responding. They are an amazing organization, folks. They collect, process, and distribute Israel's entire blood supply for civilians and the IDF. They dispatch every ambulance in Israel, and they receive thousands of emergency calls every day. And again, this is largely a volunteer force, people leaving their families to go and just to help their fellow man in Israel. When there's a terror attack in the north and the south, Magen David is there. They have lost 30 at least of their volunteers since the October 7th attacks. Imagine people laying down their lives to bless others. And they have lost at least 17 of their Magen David ambulances. And I'm in Israel on a frequent basis. I can tell you those Magen David ambulances, you can see them everywhere in the country because they are on the ground. Every rocket attack, drone attack, terror attack, God forbid, Jerusalem, north, south, and beyond, Magen David are the first on the ground right now. And it's Hanukkah, right? What a time to fulfill that biblical mandate laid out in Genesis 12:3 to bless the people of Israel in Israel's time of greatest need. Magen David needs more ambulances, bandages, and medical supplies. They are stretched very thin right now. Obviously, war in the north and the south, things brewing in Yemen now, as we're discussing. It is SaveLivesIsrael.com. SaveLivesIsrael.com. Can't recommend it highly enough, especially as you might be giving as the year comes to a close here. And it's Hanukkah again. SaveLivesIsrael.com. You will not regret it. Magen David Adom, a great organization that we are proud to stand with here on the Watchman Newscast live stream. And standing with Israel is one thing that Donald Trump certainly will do when he comes to office on January 20th. And part of that will be tackling the Iranian axis. And part of that will be tackling this Houthi problem. Now, I mentioned a few minutes ago that the head of the Mossad, David Barnea, the head of Israel's intelligence services, is reportedly recommending to Prime Minister Netanyahu that, hey, you know, we're hitting Yemen and we're hitting the Houthis there, and that's great. But at the end of the day, Iran is the puppet master and the Iranian regime. So why not strike them directly? And look, it makes a lot of sense. And we've had people over the months and years that I've interviewed saying that to me many times. Naftali Bennett, for one, the former Israeli prime minister, they said, look, Iran is the head of the octopus. Syria, Yemen, or Iraq, Gaza, Lebanon, these are tentacles. But we need to hit the head of the octopus. And the Iranian regime is clearly the head. So it does make sense in that regard. And Israel has started to do that. Now, they were provoked. Iran struck Israel in April, then again on October 1st with massive ballistic missile and barrages. So Israel had to respond directly. Well, the first attack back in April was cruise, ballistic, and drone. Second attack, October 1st, was the largest ballistic missile attack in military history. Needless to say, Israel said, okay, now again, Iran, be careful what you wish for. Israel said, now we can strike you directly. That's exactly what Israel did. And in the process have weakened this regime. So Israel has increasingly gone to the head of the snake or the head of the octopus, whatever you want to call it. But now Bibi is reportedly, again, I'm saying reportedly, according to reports coming out of the region, Bibi saying basically not yet. And again, not to beat a dead horse, January 20th. The entire world, really, the entire region, certainly in the Middle East, the world's most chaotic and volatile region, and the world in a larger sense, and certainly here in America, is waiting for the arrival of Donald Trump back into the White House on January 20th. But I think none more so than Benjamin Netanyahu, for the reason of Iran's nuclear program chiefly, but the Iranian axis in general. I think Bibi is saying, okay, let's hold off on hitting Iran until January 20th, because come January 20th, we won't get the pushback and the wailing and the weeping and the gnashing of teeth that we've had from the current U.S. administration, the Biden-Harris administration, since October 7th, every time we have dared to defend ourselves and go on the offensive against these terror forces, who, by the way, folks, again, I've talked about Israel doing the world a favor. These forces not only threaten Israel, they threaten the United States, the entire free world. The Biden administration, Europe, the Arab world, the Sunni Arab nations, they should be thanking Israel for destroying this Iranian ring of fire. It's not the case, sadly, but I think Israel will have a much more appreciative partner in Donald Trump come January 20th. And Israel's saying, look, or Bibi is saying, I should say, can we hold off till January 20th? I think he's saying to his team. And look, they may not. because Israel has a golden opportunity right now. The Houthis are one thing that may be a longer term project across multiple sorties and strikes over a period of weeks, maybe even months, until they take out the leadership there and the stockpiles. But Israel's been training, gosh, for well over a decade for a strike against Iran's nuclear sites. They know where they are, and we also know they are deeply embedded underground. They're heavily fortified. These are not easy targets. It's not a situation like we saw in 1981 when Israel took out Saddam Hussein's nuclear reactor, or in 2007 when Israel took out Bashar al-Assad's nuclear reactor in Syria. Hey, those were lone reactors, right? The Iranian program is spread multiple cities, and Iran's a very large country, spread across the country, and again, underground, deep underground, heavily fortified. So it's not a soft target, needless to say, plural targets, I should say. So Israel's thinking, okay, if Trump gets in office, and Bibi and Trump, they both said in recent weeks, hey, we're talking on a regular basis. So they're talking, and they're on the same page when it comes to Iran. It seems very much so. So Bibi might be saying, can we hold on for 3.5 weeks, roughly, and wait for Trump to get in office? And then we could have two things. Either Trump just says, total green light, Israel, do what you got to do. Or perhaps Trump even participates. Perhaps the U.S. participates in some fashion. We don't know. But Israel right now would have the Biden administration howling, don't do it, don't do it, and perhaps even chipping in as one last stab in the back out the door before January 20th and condemning Israel at the UN. You could see it. Anyone watching right now, does anyone watching right now doubt that this administration in D.C. right now would condemn Israel at the UN as a parting shot out the door? I certainly don't think so. I don't think they'd hold back from doing that. That's a sad commentary on the moral depravity of this current administration in D.C., but that's what you have right now. So Israel's weighing all of this. And that's with Iran's nuclear program. The other thing to weigh, though, is Trump wants no drama by January 20th when he gets in office. He's made that pretty clear as well. Perhaps Trump's saying, look, take care of your business, Israel, before I get in office, and then we can clean things up. We don't know. But these conversations are ongoing, and Israel's weighing many different factors clearly. When it comes to the Houthis, I think January 20th also can't come quickly enough for Israel, in that the Biden-Harris administration and the UK, they've made very clear, at least so far, in about 14 months of this going on with the Houthis now, shutting down Red Sea shipping, seizing ships, attacking U.S. shipping in the Red Sea. The Biden-Harris administration has made pretty clear that, look, we're not willing to kind of go the extra mile. We're not going to target the Houthi leadership. We're just taking purely defensive action here. And so you've got the status quo, and that's emboldening the Houthis. Surprise, surprise. This is how it works, folks. Trump's not going to have that take or that strategy, needless to say, when he gets in office January 20th. He'll be, I believe, because there are economic factors that profoundly affect the United States. And that's cherry on top for Trump, who's going to say, okay, let's take care of this Houthi situation. And if you remember, before he left office, he placed the Houthis on the list of globally designated terrorist organizations. And voila, Joe Biden takes office. One of his first actions as president in the foreign policy realm is to remove the Houthis from the terror list. Can you imagine? What a disaster on every level. And that was supposed to be a nod to the Iranian regime, where Biden was saying, and this is what, January 2021, Biden is saying, look, see, Iran, we want to play ball. We're removing the Houthis from the terror list. We're throwing you a bone here. Now throw us a bone and come to a new deal with us, a new nuclear deal. Well, that didn't happen, needless to say. But this is all the conduct of the past 4 years. And I saw the Biden administration's national security advisor, Jake Sullivan, on one of the Sunday shows on Sunday talking about, wow, Iran has been so weakened now. The Iranian axis, Hamas, Hezbollah, Syria, Iran's air defenses have been destroyed. I'm thinking to myself, all of that happened because of Israel. And in each of those cases, you, Sullivan, and your administration, you tied Israel's hands and demanded that Israel don't do that. Folks, listen, If Israel, and thank God they didn't, but if they did listen to the Biden-Harris administration, Hamas would still be standing to a large degree with its leadership intact. Same with Hezbollah. Assad would still be in power in Syria, and Iran would still have its air defenses intact. Israel did the direct opposite of what Biden, Sullivan, and this crew were recommending. And now Sullivan is saying, wow, this is great. Look what the administration he works for opposed all of these moves. But I digress. Up is down and down is up, and good is evil and evil is good. Bible times, prophetic times, needless to say. But Sullivan warned that, look, Iran may try to break out now. And we've said this for weeks, right? And now they're catching on, the Biden administration. Iran's backs against the wall, the regime's backs against the wall. Is now the time, if you want to solidify your regime, you want to hang on to power, is now the time to pursue the North Korea model if you're Iran. Meaning, once Kim Jong-un got the bomb, talk of regime change in North Korea pretty much stopped, and now he has 20 to 30 bombs, perhaps more. And he may also have the intercontinental ballistic missiles to mount the bomb on, and rest assured, Iran's working on that as well. But Iran has a decision to make, and 2025 is the moment of reckoning for that nuclear program. Either Iran is going to make the decision to break out as soon as possible. Let's do it. And they know Trump's coming into office too, which is horrible for them. They know it. They've never been more vulnerable, the Ayatollahs, than they are right now. Do they break out and decide to pursue the bomb and go for it, knowing that Israel has incredible intelligence and Israel may be tipped off and Israel may strike? But in order to hang on to their regime and reestablish deterrence, which they lost when the Ring of Fire collapsed, when their air defenses collapsed, do they break out? Or does Israel, quote unquote, break out and strike those nuclear facilities? There's really nothing in between Israel and the nuke sites and Iran right now. Syria's air defense is destroyed. Iran's air defense is destroyed. Hamas and Hezbollah weakened severely. They can't be of much help. So you're seeing the moment of reckoning. I believe it's going to come in 2025. Either way, I don't see how Israel doesn't take action here, but anything is possible. Perhaps Donald Trump comes in office and negotiates some kind of deal with the Ayatollahs, which is severely, severely terrible for the Ayatollahs, which is great for the rest of us, for the rest of the free world. But Trump has them over a barrel right now. And it can basically say, look, if you don't agree to everything that we're asking you to do, we will destroy you. And Iran knows he's just the kind of guy that would follow through. But again, whatever shakes out here, folks, moment of reckoning has arrived. Keep it right here for constant updates. We're going to come to you every day that we can and update you on what's happening in the Middle East and why it affects you no matter where you live. And we're going to do it from a biblical, prophetic perspective, unapologetically. So keep it right here. Enjoy this Christmas. Yeah, there's craziness in the world, but Jesus came into the world to bring peace, to bring shalom. One day it's going to come, courtesy of the Prince of Peace. But let's celebrate him. Let's celebrate him being sent into the world by God Almighty to save us from our sins. And it's a joyous time of the year, so let's keep that heart. Hanukkah as well, commemorating some great victories for the God of Israel through his people. So a good time right now. I think some good things lie ahead come January 20th. Keep the faith. God Almighty is on the throne, always has been, always will be. Until next time, God bless you. And remember, never hold your peace.
Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman Newscast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload. And tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget to share your thoughts, insights, and comments below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.